Unfortunately, the future is not looking pretty bright for the Indianapolis Colts, particularly Anthony Richardson Sr. He was the third quarterback who was drafted in the 2023 NFL draft. Bryce Young was the number 1 pick. CJ Stroud, the number 2 pick to Houston. Houston traded to get the number 3 pick from Arizona to draft Will Henderson. The Indianapolis Colts selected Anthony Richardson. As a starter, his record is 8-7 with a completion percentage of 50.6%, with 11 touchdown passes to only 13 interceptions. It's been announced, it's already been reported that Daniel Jones, who they signed in, I believe, in free agency last year, will be the starter. We had this conversation before. This may be it for Anthony Richardson. And Champ, I'll give you credit because you've watched a lot of SEC football. You were no fan of Anthony Richardson, the football player, neither him nor Will Levis, the Mayo Man. And I agree. And yeah, Candace said it. I really expected better from Richardson. I thought he would be a star. A lot of people, that's what they thought. They thought he was going to be the next Cam Newton or the next Josh Allen. And again, Champ, as always mentioned on the show, we got to stop looking at people based on hype. And when I look at Anthony Richardson, he has potential. I do believe there are going to be some teams that'll probably take a chance on him. There's some teams that need quarterbacks. Saints need a quarterback. Hell, if Pittsburgh, who knows? Put him in Pittsburgh, put him somewhere else. But Anthony Richardson needs a new start because he's not lived up to the expectations for the Colts. And can you imagine if Andrew Luck had not been for injuries, would still be on this team? If Andrew Luck did not retire at the age of 29, Andrew Luck would probably be 35, 36 years old. Can you imagine a healthy Andrew Luck with this team, with Shane Steichen as the head coach, with the types of talent around him? And look, Anthony Richardson, he brought a lot of this on himself with some of the things that he said. Remember what he said? College is a lot easier than the NFL as far as with the transition. And remember when he said that on a podcast?
Yes, indeed.
Or let's not forget Houston when he tapped out.
Yeah.
So with Daniel Jones there, he's not going to be there just to be the backup quarterback. He's competing for a starting job. Daniel Jones is 27, 28 years old. And even though Daniel Jones has been now on 3 teams, the Giants, the Vikings, and now with the Colts, I blame the Giants for Daniel Jones because you drafted him with the 6th overall pick. I believe you drafted him because of his relationship with David Cutcliffe, who played at his head coach at Duke, who worked with the Mannings. On top of that, you made another mistake with Daniel Jones by not picking up his 5th-year option, which is why you had to pay him the 4-year, $160 million contract extension. And by the way, if I'm the Colts, I might as well pick up that 5th-year option with Anthony Richardson Sr. because whether he becomes the quarterback or not, do I want to make the same exact mistake New York made with Daniel Jones by paying him a ton of money and seeing this little of production? I'm afraid, Champ, this may be the end for Anthony Richardson in Indianapolis. Do I think his career is necessarily over? No. But the mistake that the Colts did was they put him to the fire too soon. Considering how raw he was coming out of college, given his physical attributes, they should have gotten a veteran quarterback, let him sit and learn as much as he could. That way, he could be better developed, prepared, and show you what he can be. Just because you sit and learn, that's not a detriment. Just because you are a top 5 pick. It's actually worked out with a lot of good quarterbacks. Aaron Rodgers, even though he was drafted with the 24th overall pick. It certainly worked out for Patrick Mahomes with the 10th overall pick.
Yes.
And that's what I feel like what the Colts should have done. Rest his soul, Jim Irsay. What Irsay and what the Colts organization, Chris Ballard, what they should have done with Anthony Richardson, have him sit and learn the offense first. And then when he's ready, then he can come in and show you what he can be. I don't think his career is over, but his time in Indy, his days are numbered. What are your thoughts, champ?
Like I stated first, and give BRF a lot of credit too. Neither one of us was sold on Anthony Richardson. I think people got too caught up. The guys who came into this draft, you know, with Lamar Jackson and those guys, you know, in Baker Mayfield's draft, a lot of those guys were project quarterbacks. I mean, Lamar Jackson was a project quarterback. Josh Allen, he came out of University of Wyoming. He was a project quarterback. So I think that guys were a lot of these general managers was trying to, okay, let's get us a project quarterback so we can get a lot of credit for development. For every one of those guys, you're going to get $1 million bucks. And remember, everybody was talking about Anthony Richardson. Everybody was talking about Will Levis. Like BBR, we kept telling everybody, they're not those guys. They're not one of those ones. They got marveled by his speed and athleticism. They was trying to make him the next Lamar Jackson. But what they failed to realize is Lamar had a development system. He didn't start his first year. He was behind Joe Flacco. Patrick Mahomes was a developmental project. They had to develop him behind Alex Smith. A lot of these quarterbacks that we
Jordan
see,
Love.
Yes, a lot of these quarterbacks that we have seen, the all-time that are the generational quarterbacks that we see now, the Patrick Mahomes, the Josh Allens, the Lamar Jackson, even Jalen Hurts. Those guys had to sit for a minute until they came into their own. They weren't necessarily just, here's the keys to the Porsche, don't wreck it. And I think they threw they threw the keys to the Porsche to him too quickly without realizing exactly what he is. He's an athlete at the quarterback position. He's not an athletic quarterback. There's a difference. He's an athlete at the quarterback position. He's not an athletic quarterback. As much as we love to see the Michael Vick runs, as much as we love to see all the little, gadget plays and these quarterbacks do amazing things, that position will not be cheated. The QB position will not be cheated. You have to learn to throw from that pocket. And that is why we love Lamar Jackson. Although he can run that ball and give you 1,000 yards damn near every season, guess what? He's throwing it from that pocket, and he's gotten better and better every single year he's been in the league. Donovan McNabb, although he can run, he got better every single year he got into the league. Mike Vick, when he finally got coaching, when he finally got the personnel, you saw what he was able to do from the pocket. The quarterback position will not be cheated by athleticism, because when your athleticism leaves you, then what do you have? Remember, Randall Cunningham wasn't at his best until his athleticism left him, and he was in Minnesota, surrounded by that great talent up there in 1998. That was one of his greatest seasons. The quarterback position will not be cheated. We all love to see the runs, the magnificence, the athletics of the run. But at the end of the day, it's all going to come back to you knowing how to play the position of quarterback, not just being an athlete. And I think the Indianapolis Colts organization got too enamored with Anthony Richardson's athleticism without realizing that he has to play the quarterback position. Not to mention, there was a lot of like I said, I don't know what they were thinking with doing that. He wasn't worth a third overall for a project quarterback.
Fourth.
Excuse me. Thank you
Yeah, he
for
was the fourth. Bryce Young was the number 1 pick. CJ was the number 2. Will Anderson was the third overall pick.
yeah.
And they took him with the 4th overall pick simply because of his huge arm. He ran a 4.4 at the combine, 6'4", 240, prototypical size. But at the same time, when you watch the tape, yeah, people, and this is the thing I hate sometimes with numbers. They always say men lie, women lie, numbers never lie.
They're
What doesn't
deceiving.
lie is the tape.
Numbers don't lie, but they're very, very deceiving.
They
I'm
are.
just going to be, they're very, very deceiving because you can be looking at a dollar sign and you be thinking that that's revenue and you think you got some money, but your profit's zero. I made $20 million, but you're not looking at you're not looking at profit. And the thing is, numbers always lie. They really do. Now, I'm just going to be very, very honest with you. Numbers do lie. If you don't believe that, I think we live in the age of analytics and people want to talk about, well, he had this many touchdown passes. He had this many. If you look at that tape tells more of the truth than the number will ever tell. We've seen, look, if you need any more evidence that numbers do lie, hey, BRF, remember Scott Mitchell?
Yep.
Or Jeff
I
George.
surely do.
Or Jeff George.
Jeff George led the league in passing yards one year. Numbers lie, ladies and gentlemen. I know we live in the day and age where we just want to point to numbers and say that number doesn't lie. Numbers always lie. They lie. In the great works of Eddie Guerrero, they lie, they cheat, and they steal. Numbers do that because they cheat us into thinking something that it's not. And they steal numbers steal our joy. So numbers do lie, cheat, and steal. They lie because we don't pay attention to the eye test. They cheat because we make sure that we cheat in our minds because we try to trick ourselves on what that tape says is not true. And it steals our joy because when we look at the numbers, we realize that it's lying. I have an old saying that I always say, are you going to believe me or your lying ass eyes?
Shit.
Are you going to believe what I say or are you going to believe your lying ass eyes? Because if you believe your eyes, your eye test, it will tell you exactly what a player is. And numbers do lie. People are going to bring up, because look, if you don't believe numbers lie. Look at how they're talking about Aaron Rodgers. Well, he only had this many touchdowns. He only had this many interceptions. What did that tape say, though? The tape said he sucked. The tape says that Zach Martin had a better season the year before last than Aaron Rodgers. That's what I mean by numbers lie. You can look at that touchdown to interception ratio and the plus minuses and the completion percentage all you want to. And if you don't believe that numbers do lie, look at Lamar Jackson's MVP season the year before this one. You mean to tell me numbers don't lie in their situation? Because if anybody is to look back and look at that season that he had, people are going to say, if you just solely look at numbers, people are going to say that either Dak Prescott deserved the MVP or Brock Purdy deserved the MVP. If numbers don't lie. But unfortunately, numbers do lie, and we got to pay attention to that tape at the end of the day. And you can't deceive, and if you can't deceive your eyes, no matter how much you want to turn away from the truth. So numbers always lie. Look at Lamar Jackson's MVP season. People are going to go back and say that was a very, very mid season when they look back on the stats because they're going to fail to look at the tape. A diehard Cowboy fan is going to go back and say, maybe Dak Prescott deserved to win that if you look solely at the stats.
Same thing with Josh Allen, champ, in which you got offended when people said the DEI award, which that really pissed
exactly
you off.
that was because that number one, that's ill-mannered. You don't use that word in a manner like that. Number two, Josh Allen did not have any star receivers on his team. That was one of the biggest carry jobs we've seen carry your team to the AFC Championship since Cam. That was a carry job. And like I said, numbers always lie. You're not going to, just because you don't have, there's a difference between when you're valuable, your value is not necessarily estimated in numbers. Think about it this way. If you take Josh Allen away from that team last year, how many games do they win? If you just take him away from, if you just take them, I'm not talking about the whole season. You take them away from five games. What happens?
Oh, they'd probably be 0-5, 1-4.
Okay. But if you take Lamar Jackson away from that team with a running back at the helm that has carried a team to an AFC championship, they can at least win three of the 5 of the games, or either win 2 of the 5 of the games. They're going to win some games. But when you think about what would have happened if Josh Allen wasn't on that team, they probably would go 0-5 if he was out for 5 games. Baltimore, they would have been more heavily reliant on Derrick Henry. Like I stated, we saw it with our own eyes. We saw him carry a team with a lackluster quarterback to an AFC championship. So numbers always lie. They always lie. We just love to trick ourselves to make you think that the numbers lie. That the numbers don't lie, I will say. But
back with Anthony Richardson, when they talked about his 40, when they talked about all the other stuff, at the end of the day, when you saw the tape and look, Roundup, shout out to our guy Roundup, he did, in fairness to him, he did make some fair points about Anthony Richardson during his time in Florida. He didn't have the right type of help around him. Fair enough. But in Indianapolis, still, he hasn't improved. There were some flashes in which he had some good games, particularly the New York Jets one. But we've seen more inconsistent, bad performances on his part. And that's not what the Colts are expecting when they drafted him with the 4th overall pick, considering that they had to move on from Andrew Luck. If Andrew Luck were still here, the Colts would be running away with the AFC South
for many years to come. And it's just unfortunate that Indianapolis is one of the most quarterback-rich franchises ever. They had Johnny Unitas, Burt Jones, Peyton Manning, and Andrew Luck. 4 generational quarterbacks. 2 Super Bowls to show for it in the last 60 years.
Kind of like, just like with Green Bay. They've had Brett Favre, Aaron Rodgers, 2 Super Bowls, the 2 of them combined. And the 2 of them, 7 MVPs combined.
Exactly.
ERF.
It's unfortunate because I was the one that said if Daniel Jones beats Anthony Richardson out for the starting job, he might as well pack it up. I was one of the first ones that said it. It's crazy because I think the only way he sees the field this year is if Daniel Jones, and if you know, like if he just absolutely, if he just garbage to the point where you at least give Anthony Richardson one more shot, then yeah. But I think Daniel Jones, I would hope he's got his mindset and he's in a position to where he's not going to be the reason they lose games. And honestly, he needs to play like that. He doesn't need to be all big time. He doesn't need to just, show out and be the savior for the franchise. He needs to come out, manage, get the playmakers the ball, get the ball in Jonathan Taylor's hands, just distribute, get out the way, and let those guys do their thing. I mean, you got a Michael Pittman Jr., you got You got a AD Mitchell. I mean, you got a Alec Pierce. I mean, it's not like you don't have talent at the wide receiver position. You have good wide receiver talent there in Indianapolis. So you got guys you can get the rock to, let them get out the way, and let them do their thing. It's just that it's unfortunate with Anthony Richardson because I kind of felt all along that giving him the starting nod out of the gate was rushing it because you could see his film in Florida. He's very inconsistent. He's very raw. Like, yes, he may have a tremendous arm. He's got one of the biggest arms in the league, but his intermediate game is god awful. Like the intermediate passing game is not good, and it has yet to improve. And that was probably the biggest knock on him coming out. Was yeah, we get it. He's got an amazing deep ball. He's got one of the strongest arms in the league. But where your bread is buttered as a quarterback in the National Football League is being able to make timing throws, is being able to make short timing throws, intermediate timing throws. Like you're in and outs. You're timing your drags, or you're out. Your outs on the sideline, like being able to hit them. Your 10-15 yard out cuts. Being able to hit the real true timing throws. That's where quarterbacks make their money, is being able to anticipate and being able to hit these guys on the money. And Anthony Richardson has yet to improve. And I kind of hated that he was thrown in from out the jump off the bat, because he was expected to come in and be the savior of this franchise. And he never got a shot to really sit down and really kind of learn the position, learn to operate on the pro level as being a pro quarterback. And we're seeing it because he's not getting any better, and he's made bad decisions, whether it's on the field or stuff he said to the media. Like, he hasn't really he still hasn't matured into that spot of being the face of the franchise yet. And that's unfortunate for him, because just because I wasn't a fan of him coming out of Florida doesn't mean I wasn't rooting for him to do well, because the raw potential was there for him to be a great quarterback. And that rookie year, you saw glimpses of it before he got hurt. Like,
Yes.
you really saw glimpses of it. Like, he wasn't the most accurate guy even then, but he was you could see him tapping into it, and he was really starting to feel himself and coming to his own before he got hurt. And just since he came back, it's just been nothing but regression upon regression upon regression. So I personally think his time in Indy is over, unless Daniel Jones really plays so bad. You can't just leave him out there. Like, if Daniel Jones is the reason they're losing games, you have to put Anthony Richardson out there. If Daniel Jones is the reason you're losing multiple games, you need to get Anthony Richardson out there. If nothing else, what Anthony Richardson needs to do is own up, take the accountability of not maturing, not growing like he should have as a player, and use this opportunity to sit on the bench to soak up as much as he can. Hey, regardless of how you feel about Daniel Jones, he is a veteran in this league. He's seen a lot. He can give him pointers as far as how to operate, whether it's to the media, just stuff like that. He can give him tips on how to operate as a vet quarterback, soak up all the knowledge he can from his coaches, quarterback coach, head coach, offensive coordinator. Just soak up everything and just make himself better. Just make himself better on the practice field. Make himself better on 7-on-7s. Improve his accuracy, improve his anticipation, just improve all of his decision making altogether. He needs to take this opportunity to really, really sit down and soak up all the knowledge he can to at least make himself not only just a better quarterback, but a better man on and off the field. To where if the Indianapolis Colts do cut him, the next team that gets him has more of a product that they can work with, that they can develop, that they can build off what he's going to learn, hopefully sitting on the bench this year in Indianapolis. Can you imagine if Anthony Richardson really if he was to play this year and he shows good improvement, but let's say Indianapolis doesn't trust him and they let him go? Can you imagine him with a Sean McVay in LA backing up Matthew Stafford? Can you imagine him with a mind of a Sean McVay? Could you imagine him with the Denver Broncos with the mind of a Sean Payton? Could you imagine him going to Kansas City with the mind of an Andy Reid to be a backup? He needs or
with
Baltimore,
Todd Monken.
Baltimore with Todd Monken. Exactly. He needs to go somewhere with a set, stable, structured environment already in place with a great offensive mind who can bring him in and just show him the ropes and let him sit and let him develop and let him learn. And when his number's called, he goes out and he plays well and ultimately earns a starting job and earns a second contract and go out and go out and become a starter again. But after this season, if Indianapolis cuts him, which honestly I feel like the writing's on the wall now. I think at this point you're basically you're taking your L for the draft pick is what you're doing. You're practically taking by starting Daniel Jones, you're taking the L for the draft pick. And you want to get through this season and you want to see what you can do with Anthony Richardson, whether it's trading him or cutting him. But I would like to see him go to a more structured environment to where he can truly learn from somebody who understands offense, who understands the quarterback position, who can help mold him and make himself be a better player in the future. Because it's definitely not Indianapolis. I mean, going to starting Daniel Jones is basically the Indianapolis coach saying, "Yep, it's time to move on to the next one. We take the L for the draft pick. It's time to keep it pushing." It's pretty much what that tells me with the Indianapolis coach. They're pretty much all but giving up on him.
Shout out to Darlene Mosher. I hope he goes to the Dallas Cowboys. Well, I don't know if you're a Dallas Cowboys fan, you would want Anthony Richardson, even though he's 23 years old and has a lot of potential, but at the same time, very raw. I still believe if one of these quarterbacks from this draft pans out, then Jerry's not going to hesitate drafting him. But the thing is with Anthony Richardson, good thing for him is no expectations.
Right.
So no expectations. So Daniel Jones is going to be the starter. To your point, BRF. The only way Anthony Richardson plays is either Daniel Jones stinks it up, or God forbid gets hurt. God forbid gets hurt, and Anthony Richardson comes in. You would think with Anthony Richardson, with Shane Steichen as the head coach, with Jonathan Taylor running the football, with Mitchell, they drafted the tight end out of Penn State, Tyler Warren. So they've gotten Anthony Richardson some pieces, and still inconsistent, raw. As you mentioned, the intermediary game, he's got to work on that, because there are some throws like he made in the preseason game against Green Bay that you're like, wow, or the season opener last year against Houston, wow. But we see the bad performances from time to time. I think he needs a rejuvenation, and just because they look pretty, it's like with the girl. Just because they look pretty, that doesn't mean you should take them. Look at Brock Purdy for an example. He's not prototypical in terms of size, but he fits into the right type of offense, the type of system for Kyle Shanahan. And look what happened with Brock Purdy. They didn't lose that Super Bowl because of him. They lost it because, yet again, Kyle Shanahan refused to run the football. And look what Brock Purdy has done now. Multiple conference championship appearances. Heck, 49ers fans still make the argument. Had he played in that NFC championship game against the Eagles, who knows? There may have been a different outcome, although I still would have picked the Eagles to win that one. But just because you draft a quarterback that right away, you don't start him right away. And just because they have the flashy signs doesn't mean you have to take them. There are other things you can't teach, which are those intangibles. And I think for Anthony Richardson, he's got to sit and learn and got to figure out what he really needs. But I wish him nothing but the best. If I'm the Colts, I listen to some trade offers to get something in return, because if you don't, and if you still decide to stick with him, okay, you better pick up that 5th-year option, because if he pulls off a Daniel Jones type of season, just like Daniel Jones did in 2022, because Daniel Jones made the playoffs, they won a playoff game. They moved on from Saquon Barkley. They didn't give Saquon his money, but they gave Daniel Jones the bag. And look how that happened.
They still regret that.
Still to this day, whether they'll admit it or not, it was a huge mistake on the New York Giants' part. So let's hope for the Indianapolis Colts they don't make that exact mistake. As for Anthony Richardson, wish him nothing but the best.